morning. So when I was a small boy, there was a rule in our schools. You had to make an exercise. So we start, as also director said, that we will not talk about sport, but that was the rule, that you had to make an exercise before the start of the school. And actually today is a very important day. So when someone has some time, then at 1 o'clock we will have a NATO test. So you are more than welcome. Some of members of parliament, president of Olympic Committee will join us, so you are more than welcome to join us for the NATO test. But I understand that also this conference here is very, very important, and I'm very glad that we have Boris Pistorius, Minister of Defense of Germany, here, many generals and excellencies and some very good friends in this room. So it's a great honor and pleasure to talk to you and to share some thoughts. So to begin with, I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that Ukraine has still not won the war. And to be honest, Europe is still not doing enough for its own needs. But the good news is that many people who can do more to make things better are sitting in this room right now. So we know that Ukraine has done way better in defending itself than many others, or many of us has expected. The same goes for the Euro-Atlantic Community's report card on supporting Ukraine. We have taken a lot of important steps, but haven't gotten far enough yet. I am underlining yet, because we still can. I am very confident that we do have what it takes to help Ukraine win this war. Escalation concerns have guided us to a strategy of war attrition, and the success of this the hinges on strategic patience. The sheer size of our collective political, economic, and military power should guarantee a victory over Russia if we unanimously unite and commit to the same goal. Let's face it, Ramstein Group has a combined GDP of 47 trillion euros. Total military aid to Ukraine has been so far around 95 billion euros. So it's around 0.2% of that. At the same time, the combined defense budgets of the Ramstein coalition are more than 13 times greater than Russia's heavily inflated one. 1.24 trillion against 0.09 trillion euros. There should be no doubt in who has the advantage to prevail. Do we remember how Russia expected us to disunite and surrender of our efforts to support Ukraine 19 months ago? Together we can accomplish difficult things. Our success rates are overcoming bottlenecks, albeit at a slow pace, is actually encouraging. The EU's historic agreement to provide Ukraine 1 million artillery rounds by March next year is a great display of where the right resolve could take us. A quarter of this initiative has been completed by today, yet it is by no means the high water mark or our capacity. I'm convinced we can accomplish and even exceed the target. The artillery ammunition production rates are up and on the rise. The United States has doubled its monthly figures. European factories are producing hundreds of thousands of rounds more annually than before 2022. We can keep the deliveries going. The EU's military assistance mission in support of Ukraine, called EUMAM, will reach its goal of 30,000 trained Ukrainian soldiers next month. We are not conclusively strained. Let us set a new aim, a new pace, a new standard of quality, and keep giving the brave Ukrainians the skills and means they need. Russia remains confident that it can outlast Ukraine and the West. It is our job to prove the opposite. We have all the reasons to strive for it, because all the alternatives are more costly and deadly. In May 1989, in Berlin, during the final acts of the Cold War, President George H.W. Bush voiced a vision of a Europe whole, free, and at peace. Less than 6 months later, the fall of the Berlin Wall paved way to realizing it. Today, this aspiration is at stake in Ukraine. Without Ukraine's victory, we are headed for a Europe that is divided, captive, and in a state of unrest instead. Rather than rolling back to the circumstances of pre-1989, I would prefer to imagine Ukraine 2029, prospering, independent in its entirety, a fresh member of the European Union and NATO. Let us make sure that our actions of today bring this enduring European vision to life, so that eventually we would be able to look back at this war as the final obstacle demolished, one where spheres of influence are a historical memory and where aggression has no say over independent nations. Yet we cannot escape learning from the past mistakes. Russia has stated its long-term strategic aim of dissolving the rule-based world order plain as day. Moreover, it is consistently demonstrating its readiness to employ brutal force with a heavy price to go after these aims. In Estonia, our history has taught us better than merely hoping for the dark times to pass. We need to make sure NATO is ready to face a much more dangerous world. A credible forward defense is the only way to build deterrence by denial that could avoid war and stop Russia's cycle of aggression. We need to make good on our pledges, invest heavily in defense, ensure that NATO has executable plans along with the necessary forces, capabilities, and ample stocks, and ramp up our defense industry to sustain it. To this end, Europe particularly needs to step up its game. In light of war, the marks which severe underinvestment has left on our defense are showing clearly, and these marks are still too visible. Only 1/3 of NATO members invest 2% of GDP in defense today. 10 years ago in Wales, all the members of NATO set the target to reach 2% in 10 years. Now these 10 years have passed. Even more, in Vilnius, we agreed that 2% should be the absolute minimum. And where do we stand today? Maybe we will have around 20 countries having 2% by the end of next year. This is not enough. We can and we need to do more. Our defense readiness needs a decisive lift, because transatlantic security depends on our capacity all the same. Having just completed tough budgetary negotiations within the Estonian government, I understand the difficulty of resources. In Estonia, we've opted for at least 3% of GDP for defense, and next year it will be 3.2. So 2 weeks ago, I signed Estonia's largest ever defense procurement with German company Deal Defense to buy air defense system. Latvia joined in, and so we know that the air defense gap above the Baltics is finally about to start closing. We are also expecting our HIMARS deliveries, filling up our ammunition stocks, and conducting the largest ever exercise of reservists. Actually, this is going on as we speak here in Tallinn. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind us the famous quote of President Zelensky from the early days of war. "I need ammunition, not a ride." NATO is the most powerful military alliance in history. when push comes to shove, we can only ride forward, stocked with ammunition. Keeping that in mind, let us reach tangible results during the next year to come, so that NATO summit in Washington could be a historic moment of NATO, not just another historic anniversary. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward for our discussion right after Boris's speech. Thank you very much.